So, dear audience, welcome back. I hope you enjoyed some time off, and now ready to continue with our next session. And the next presenter for today is gonna be Dina Paoloni, who is the career abroad coach for nurses from Nurses Move. And Dina is going to talk about the challenge of global nurses migration, how to leverage expat nurses' skills and maintain retention. So let's invite Dina. So hello, Dina. So I guess we cannot hear you.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah, now that's great. Thank you.
Thank you very much for having me. Good afternoon to everyone. Thank you, Maria.
So, Dina, would you like me to share the slides, or you will try to do it yourself? How is it going to be more convenient?
Yeah, can you allow me to share?
Sure. Sorry. Yeah. Apologize.
It's
All
fine.
right. So then the stage is yours, and good luck with the presentation.
Thank you very much. Thank you, everyone, for having me. I'm so excited. I'm very happy to be invited and be here to talk about the challenge of global nurse migration and how to leverage expert nurses' skill and maintain retention. So, as a leader, it's very important that you know the aspects of a global nurses migration because depending of the country, depending of the hospital, we had a number like 30% to 80% of nurses that are overseas, international. So you really need to know about this topic. But about this topic, you need to know, first of all, the difference between expat nurses and immigrant nurses, because this makes a difference. You need to know what's happening at global level about global nurse migration and who is involved. You need to know the recruiting challenges for overseas nurses, international nurses, the retention challenge that they face day by day, and how to support them, the international nurses. And also as rejection, I would like to say, telling you how to act as a magnetic hospital. So this presentation is for you, it's not for me. I just wanted to tell you I am 1 in 1,000 as an international nurses. I am an expat nurse. I am a seasonal nurse because when I moved abroad, I had already 12 years experience in my country. I am Italian. I moved in UK in 2015. I am a mother with family difficulty, and as you know, all international nurses who are parents, they are alone with their family because they left the support system at home. So when they are in a new country, they have difficult. Also, I am a woman who wants to do career in research, so I face my challenge in them. But I start to help nurses to move abroad in 2015. So for this reason, I am a nurse who experiences, researched about, and learn about global nurses migration. This is why I then become career abroad coach. So it's very important that you know the difference about expat nurses, migrant nurses, because depending who you have in front of you, as a leader, you have to act and interact with them in a different way. So the word expat carry many connotations, preconception and assumption about class, education, and privilege. Just as the term foreign worker, immigrant, and migrant call to mind a different set of assumptions. Generally speaking, an expat is a skilled professional who would choose to move abroad to increase their skill. So you will ask, but nurses are all skilled professionals. Yes, but because in those years I helped so many nurses to move abroad, I actually found some differences. And I can say, I'll tell you now about the difference, but I can say that an expat nurse is a nurse who chooses to move abroad for a short or long period of time in order to improve their skill and proceed in their career life. And the other side, an immigrant nurse is a nurse who need to leave their country to find a job elsewhere. So the perspective has changed. And regardless the qualification of source country, regardless their motivation in moving abroad. The difference between expat nurses and migrant nurses are the mental status, how they think, their self-awareness, their attitude, their goals, their behaviors, their risk of tolerance, and also achieve their goal, which kind of compromise they want to face. Their making decision process is different. Also, their role in your team and in your organization in general is different between expat nurses and migrant nurses. And of course, their pride is different. The expat nurses feel professional, the migrant nurses feel a worker. And this has changed, of course, their attitude. But you have to understand also the motivation. And regardless the qualification of such countries, regardless if they are expats or migrant nurses, international nurses have different motivation to move abroad. They could be political, economical, cultural, educational, for travel, or for love. So in front of you, you have a human being, you have a person that is move abroad for different reasons and who has a different goals. So it's very important as well that you know the factor that influences the nurses' migration. And in this session, I really would like to tell you different aspects of global nurse migration and wrap up at the end, if you don't mind. So, factor that influence nurse migration. You have push factors and you have pull factor. The push factor mainly are in a source country, the country where the nurses come from. There is political issue, low pay, low resource and PPE in general, and so risk of infection. In some country in Africa, there is a high risk of infection of AIDS. No career opportunity, no education opportunity, high responsibility, no recognized, no economics, no socially, unhealthy workplace, and unfortunately in some place there is a high level of poverty and war. What are the pull factors that pull nurses to move in certain countries? You have political stability or a better political environment. You have a economic stability or better economy. You have a better pay. You have technology, research, and PPI that make your job easier and safer. You have a safe and more stable workplace environment. I don't want to say yet healthy work environment because we're still facing bullies and we still need to resolve this problem worldwide, even in developed countries. So I can't say healthy yet. There are more education opportunity and career opportunity for nurses. And also social recognition, which I believe sometimes is the most important because they make you proud of your profession. So what's happening at global level? Why we have this shortage of nurses? We know that we already have an increasing shortage of nurses worldwide, and there is a concern from government and WHO. But where it come from? First of all, unfair pay. All of us know about this. We never pay enough. We do a hard work. Plus, we have a lot of responsibility that are not recognized, especially economically, but also socially. We have a low opportunity of career sometime, or they are very restricted sometime. We have an attractive career for the younger generation, so young people don't choose to be a nurse, they choose to be something else. My personal opinion, also because we do a very bad marketing of our profession, we should put a little more effort on making a little bit better marketing of our profession. There are political issues that push nurses to leave their profession. Of course, the global economic crisis that doesn't help. We already have a low pay. Sometimes the expenses are higher than our salary. So especially mom decide to leave the career because it's cheaper stay at home with kids than go at work and maybe start a career. Yeah. And then we got migration boundary that make the global nurses migration difficult. So we can sometimes relate really on international nursing supply. We already have this problem, and we have this problem since decades. We are assisted to nursing migration since early 1415. 1915. As depending is a up and down depending on the country, but always we needed nurses, and we always assisted to a short of nurses. But COVID happened, and this make things worse. And several nurses left the profession due exhaustion, depression, burnout, disappointment from the institution. And unfortunately, illness ended. The WHO reported that 3,000 nurses are directly linked to an ICU COVID or an work COVID died for COVID-19. So there was a trick at some point after an initial short boom of interest and support from the younger generation that saw us as a hero and wanted to become nurses because they want to be heroes. We assisted actually to a complete disinterest for the profession because of the poor conditions, the low pay. So actually, after COVID, when it was an increasing in demand in international nurses supply. So because of that, we face recruiting challenges for international nurses. The government, all of them, at the beginning started an aggressive fast-track international recruiting. Of course, after the lockdown, for some time, all of us been locked in our country. There was no change at all. But as soon as was possible to reopen, government started aggressive fast-track international recruiting. They changed migration law and then allocating fund. UK last year allocated £22 million for international nurses. So what's happened? That the hospital organization gives the power to recruiting agency to accelerate the process, of course. Everyone use recruiting agency. So I don't want absolutely blame anybody. I just tell you what's happening at the facts. What's happened is that only young expat nurses did benefit from that. Only those who were able to meet the requirements for nursing board regulator registration, they were just able to do it straight away. Unfortunately, the other nurses get trapped. Seasonal nurses or nurses who had kids needed to move fast because they were in need of move and change country. A lot of them have been trapped in a workplace that didn't represent them because maybe they have their experiences, their skills, but they couldn't use because they just find the first job that was available for them to move abroad. And when the recruiting agency move a nurse for free in another country, it's not actually for free because the nurse have to pay back in another way what they spend up front. So always this nurse has to sign a contract to 2-3 years with this agency to pay back. So, and unfortunately, a lot of the nurses actually get crap in a scam. So they actually pay money and they couldn't move at all. So what didn't work? What's happening if all the resources have been put in place for the international nurses market? Which challenges nurses face during the recruiting process? So we said that have been started aggressive recruitment only for nurses who meet the requirements. Of course, they need the nurses, so they need the one they're able to register straight away, so meet the requirements. What's happened then? Then the hospital organization give the the work to the recruiting agency. So they did an aggressive marketing on social media, events, ads. They said, we need a nurses, come in this country, they sponsor you, they give you this, they give you that. So massive marketing on social media, in events and ads. Lots of money have been put in the global nurses market. The other side, of course, nurses board negotiators, all of them try to protect the nursing profession. So, and sometimes we have long, expensive registration process. So there were, if we can say a green light from one side because all the attractive recruiting process. The other side, we have a red flag because you have to meet the you have to meet the requirement in order to register and work as a nurse. So some people, very smart people, understood the problem and the gap. So this situation that happened became a great attractiveness for scammer. And why? Because what they used, they used the nurse's desperation. The nurse that needed to move abroad in some way or another. So what's happened at the end, lots of nurses have left without job because or they don't have in their countries with very low pay, and or because they're not able to access abroad. So, and very sad. So what is the consequence of aggressive overseas recruiting? The healthcare sector loses thousands of well-educated and well-experienced international nurses. I'm sorry to say that, but what's happened? Because it doesn't consider global nurses market. The healthcare system doesn't know about the global nurses market. Just look at the number, hospital, just one hospital, for example, just for say something. I'm an hospital, I need 100 nurses. Okay, I take an agency, a recruiting agency that help me to recruit 100 nurses. Okay, so this recruiting agency just take 100 nurses, regardless their experience, skills. So the healthcare sector didn't take direct responsibility on recruiting. But there are somebody who actually protect the global nurses market and who are involved. First of all, we have the International Council of Nurses. Okay, all of you know about it. Then we have CGFNS International, which is a non-profit organization that help the qualification, help nurses to meet the requirement. And then we got the International Center of Nurse Migration, which is another non-profit organization formed by the International Council of Nursing in collaboration with the CGFNS. Of course, we got the World Health Organization. And then we have an organization which is a non-profit organization made by the United Nations, which is the International Organization on Migration, that provide law and organize the migration in general, not just for nurses. But we can relate on this organization. I will skip those slides. I know that you will receive, so you can read after. I won't telling you about one by one, but I'm sure you'll know those organizations. What I like to you is go and have a look at two important documents. They are working on thinking about global nurses market, which are Sustain and Retain 2022 and Beyond, the Global Nursing Workforce and the COVID-19 Pandemic, which has been released by the International Council of Nursing, International Center Nurse Migration, and the CGFNS International. It's been released on the 24th of January this year, just during Omicron, if I'm not wrong. please correct me if I'm wrong, was January anyway. And then you have to look at Nurses: A Voice to Lead, A Vision for Future Healthcare, released by International Council of Nursing in occasion of the International Nurses Day. I want to talk about the first document just shortly because we have a little time. So Sustain and Retain in 2022 behind basically look at two main area. So the attractiveness of nurses as a career for to retain in a short time, and how to implement policy and enable contribution in order to retain in long term. So the first is you have to look at the fair pay. You have to fight for fair pay. You have to fight for career opportunity for nurses, and you have to be sure that nurses have access to continuing education. To retain in the long term, they suggest supporting advanced specialized skills, and this is important also for seasoned, skilled international nurses. Effective skills mix and fair working partners. They want a more homogeneous team. Also, they support team working, appropriate technology equipment, and appropriate training. And this is very related to international nurses. So we talk about actually recruiting challenges for international nurses. You need to know about also the retention challenge for overseas international nurses. You know, when you move abroad, you have to meet requirements, you have to do exam, you have to pay a lot of things. There is a very hard process you have to overcome in order to register as a nurse in another country. But it's not just that, it's not finished, it's just the beginning. Because when you move abroad, you face a lot of challenges. First of all, the cultural shock. You move in another country with a different culture, you have no cultural shock. But not just that, you have the nursing shock. When I talk about nursing shock, people at first don't understand. But the thing is, the nursing evolves following the society evolution. So the nursing that we have in UK is completely different from the nursing that we practice in Italy. I'm Italian, so always make this example. That different from the nursing which is practiced in USA. So when a nurse move abroad, in a certain way, have to learn again, or learn in a different way how to approach the patients, how to do some procedure, even the drugs. Some drug in a country is used for certain things. In another country, use it for another thing because they use a side effect instead of the primary effect. So anyway, there's a lot of things that our international nurses have to learn again. So we face a nursing shock. Another challenging, of course, is loneliness. As a person, I have a family. As I said before, I'm a mom with kids in another country. I do not have the support system that I have at home. And so we experience loneliness, and this affects our mental health, especially in the first periods where we try to build a new life abroad. We have a loss in expertise and a loss of skill because when we move abroad, we have to start from scratch as we are new qualified. And this is why I say the only who benefits is a young nurse because they just need to learn everything. So even the seasonal nurse and experienced nurse need to learn, as I told you about nursing shock and the different way of the nurses. But some skill are lost because I'll tell you in a second now. But it's a problem. Also, you have racism, which is different country by country, more or less, but there is unfortunately still. There is an inequality in relationship with their native peers, and depending on the country, doesn't matter which is the country, the native have more chance to proceed a career than the international nurses. And this, I very want to highlight this next, actually, because I'm very sensitive about toxic group dynamic. So the problem here is that we assist a formation subgroup and a national aggregation, because when you move abroad, when a person moves abroad, what it tends to do is to go to the people that come from the same nation, because they speak the same language, they have the same culture, they know better each other. So what's happened in a workforce, in a workplace, that we face a formation, we see a formation subgroup led by a national aggregation. And if there is a toxic environment, we assist servility, obedience, bullying, where nurses who are there before can dictate things to the new nurses that just come, if it makes sense. I don't know if you never noticed, but it is. And of course, the currency remittance is another challenge for nurses. A lot of nurses have to send money back to their family and their whole country, so they cut their salary. And in place where the salary is not high, you understand why. For example, in UK lately, with the RCN released this document where I don't know how many, but several nurses jump a meal a day because their salary is not enough, because they have to cut to send home for current remittance. So how you as a leader can support overseas nurses? And this is just my humble opinion as an expat nurse myself, as a career abroad coach for nurses. You can help them during the recruiting process, you can help them during the retention. At the recruiting process, you can support, first of all, support international students. Because you have people who want to study nursing in your country. So if you open to international student, you actually you don't face the ethical recruitment process, but you just open to student. Okay, so it's more fair. And also there are nurses who want specialize, want master, PhD. So if you open to them and you open to a lot of courses, you actually have nurses who, yes, come from overseas, from abroad, but when they are in the markets, because they are specialized in your country, they already know about everything because they study in your country, if it makes sense. You have to also incentivize career visa. So nurses who struggle to meet the requirement but want to move in your country, you have to help them. You can allow them to work as a carer. You give them the visa. You support them with a career plan. And you help them with your nurses educator in order to meet the requirement as soon as possible so they can register in their nursing board regulator. And for the same you do for the support independent nurses. Independent nurses who are those nurses who left the country, move abroad without any kind of job and start the process for registration. The last thing, from my point of view, you have to promote bridging course or nursing degrees apprenticeship. So we know that in all countries we have different qualification. We got nursing degrees, we got diploma, we got kind of certification. If you promote bridging course or nursing degree apprenticeship to help those people to come in your country and leverage their qualification, so you have high qualified nurses that can help in your work in your organization. Talking about retention, for sure, we saw the challenge. So let them certify soon, especially if they're skilled and experienced nurses. You don't want them to lose their skill. Let them certify soon so they can help in your work, in your team, in your organization. It's very important that you do an appraisal considering their past skill experience, even in the country, not just last year and they were at home. So please consider their experience in country so you can help them to regain their skill, to certify in your country their skill. And really, I agree with Sharon Janjikimniadze when she say about the survey. You have to do an anonymous survey. It's so important. You have to ask their needs. The more you know your nurses, the better you can help them, the happier you can make it. So you prolong retention because you can help them and they feel safe, they feel supported, they feel heard. So anonymous survey is so important. Do as much as you can. Of course, also you have to support with their mental state, finance, because as I said, there is a remittance. A lot of them cut their salary to send home. So I think that give them financial advice is very important. You have to support their kids. I would like to ask you, how many of you in your organization have a nursery or a reception or an after-school club? Because those things are very expensive. If you provide for your nurses in a way that is cheap for you as well, in a smart way, you can retain your nurses because you give them something that's very important for them for free, or they can join you for a cheap cost. And again, very important that avoid subgroup, and especially national subgroup, encourage to speak up. Really encourage psychological safety so people feel safe and speak up. Make them happy generally, recognize their skill, certify them, make them happy, clap them when they do something good, encourage new idea, and give bonuses if you can. Ask help to charities. Charities are willing to help and they're very good for give bonus to nurses. Just a suggestion, I believe all of you know what is a magnetic hospital. Is actually a designation, is a status, which started in America, but they spread worldwide in the last few years. To the magnetic hospital tend to have a low passion to nurseration. They tend to have lower mortality rate for surgical patients, lower hospital association infection rate, shorter average length of stay for stroke patients, but for all patients in general. But most important, magnetic hospitals tend to have high nursing staff retention because magnetic hospital attract both patients and nurses, and they are the nursing excellent. So B certificate is very expensive. I don't say that you have to do necessarily, but if you pretend you are a magnetic hospital, it's important that you work on 5 fields, which are transformational leadership and transformational coaching. Start to use transformational coaching in your organization. Structural empowerment, even little change in your world can make the difference. Exemplary professional practice, always follow the latest base evidence guidelines. New knowledge, innovation, improvement, encourage new idea and research, empirical outcome. Really encourage team build, experience outside the work with the colleagues, and make the work environment safe and happy as much as you can. Thank you. I'm very happy to take any question.
So Dina, thank you so much for sharing your presentation. So it was quite interesting to find out about the migration of nurses. And here we go with the questions. We already have some of them. So, in your opinion, how the nurse migration impacts the healthcare sector?
Impacts quite a lot. As I said, you have to understand the expat nurses and migrant nurses, they different, so they impact in a different way. And the expat nurses tend to wish to do career and research as well, so they really improve the healthcare system. But the migrant nurses as well, they help the healthcare system, because when you are understaffed, you're not able to provide even the little care. It's very hard and difficult to do research or improve the quality of the care, because of course the care become worse because you don't have enough staff. So both of them are very helpful for the healthcare sector, and they are a big impact on it. Yeah.
Thank you, Dina. And another question. Which ways do you see to overcome aggressive recruitment?
My job actually is educate nurses, because nurses, the information is not really available on internet. To have a really big idea or broad idea what's happening, you really need to be on the market from a long time. And what I am, this is what I know. And I study a lot, I read a lot. There are several books to talk about, but really stay update with, again, this organization. They release a lot of document update, and really think about nurses as a person. So of course you need the nurses, so you have to support the recruiting. As I said before, I don't want to repeat myself, but you have to support the recruiting process, thinking about the need of the nurses as well. You cannot let them alone. So you recognize the aspect of nurses migration, you know what are the problem, you try to overcome the problem. So you open the recruitment in a different way. You do the bridging course, you do the degree apprenticeship, you encourage international students, you encourage with a visa for move abroad like a carer, and then you support those nurses to meet the requirements. So as I said, you can support them so you can overcome the aggressive recruiting actually.
Thank you so much for your reply. And I cannot see any more questions at the moment. So I just will display your email address for the audience. So please feel free to reach Dina by writing to her directly on her email. So Dina, thank you very much for your presentation, and I hope to see you during the roundtable.
Absolutely. Yes, thank you very much for having me. It's been a pleasure.